All right, everybody, welcome in to another edition of the Fast Break. I'm Casey Johnson. Believe it or not, this is episode 5. And here are 3 storylines I'm going to be watching this week and 1 storyline I'm not going to be watching, which I'll save for the last. Number 1, Matas Buzelis. Now, this storyline is going to extend all week because not only am I going to be paying attention to Matas Buzelis' usage in his last 2 games for the Bulls before the All-Star break, but he also will be a participant in the slam dunk contest Saturday night. I'm going to get into that in a second. But first, his Bulls stuff. This guy has now had 7 straight games with 20 or more minutes playing time. He's going to be making his 3rd start Tuesday night against the Detroit Pistons. In that 7-game stretch where he's played at least 20 minutes, he's averaging 14.1 points, shooting 63.8% from the floor. How does that sound? 48% from the three-point line, averaging 4.1 rebounds, and most importantly, from my perspective, 1.6 blocks, because this guy has got strong defensive potential. His weak side awareness is beyond a rookie status, and he continues to show that with increased time. I've said this before, it was always the plan to play Matas Buzelis more minutes down the stretch. You're seeing that. And what I like about how he's approaching this is he's extremely confident, but he's also staying humble. In fact, he has multiple times talked about how he appreciates the approach that Billy Donovan and the coaching staff have taken with him, teaching him lessons about accountability, sometimes by yanking his playing time. I know some fans didn't like to see that, but you're hearing it from him himself that he appreciated that. So that to me is important. He's also, as I said, very confident. In fact, he said it was his goal to be starting by the end of his rookie year. So he has accomplished that part of his goal. Now look, as far as his usage, you've also seen him being given more responsibility. He's not just in catch and shoot situations anymore. You've seen him get in pick and roll situations. Billy Donovan told us after Monday's practice that he also is encouraging Matas to grab the rebound and not look for a guard to outlet the ball, to take the ball up court himself and push the pace himself. Now, this is where I think he's got the most potential, because for a 6'10" guy and a rookie at that, he's got very good handles. Sometimes he gets a little loose with it, but that's to be understood when you're adjusting to the increased pace of the NBA. However, his confidence in ball handling situations has been apparent, with some really nifty crossover moves, some spin moves. You saw him in the pick and roll situation last game. He put a guy in a blender and scored with his left hand. So there's quite a bit of potential offensively for Matas Buzelis. Now, let's get into Saturday night. Again, I mentioned that confidence. I like All-Star Saturday night. I don't like All-Star Sunday, and I just kind of tease what my storyline that I won't be watching is, but we'll get to that in a second. I love All-Star Saturday night. Matas Buzelis had the quote of the day when he said, "I'm not going there to lose." This guy wants to win the dunk contest. He said he's already perfected 4 dunks, 2 of which you have never seen before. One of those was with the assist of Zach LaVine. He kind of hinted that there may be a jersey involved in that. And he actually, and look, he's 20 years old. He actually cited Zach LaVine as more of an influence on his dunking ability than Michael Jordan. Let's give him some credit, or let's give him a little bit of a pass for that, because as I mentioned, he's only 20 years old, and Zach LaVine had epic performances in winning back-to-back dunk contests in 2016 and 2017. Now, Zach's no longer to help Matas Buzelis with the day-to-day, but he has helped him before his trade, and I think Zach will be there in spirit when Matas Buzelis goes to win that dunk contest Saturday night. So I'll be locked into that. Hopefully you'll be too. All right, storyline number 2. Of course, we're going to be following the usage of the new players in Tre Jones, Kevin Huerter, and Zach Collins. And the latter category might not be a lot to track. I will get into that in a second. Look, they played a lot, or I should say Tre Jones and Kevin Huerter played a lot in their first game against the Golden State Warriors. Zach Collins got a DNP CD. Now, you could say this was somewhat offset by Lonzo Ball missing that game to illness. Lonzo Ball will again be out Tuesday night. He's still battling that illness and is not playing back-to-back games anyway, so they're going to sit Lonzo Ball Tuesday night, giving him another day to rest. So the rotation's a little skewed right now. That said, I know for a fact that the Bulls want to take a hard look at Tre Jones and Kevin Huerter at least down the stretch. And look, Tre Jones, I've only obviously spoken to him once post-game in his young Bulls career. I like this about him. He's very hard on himself. He was very critical, although I thought he played pretty well in his ability to try to push the pace, organize the offense, use his voice as a true point guard and as a leader. I thought he played decent in that game against Golden State. He thought he had a long way to go, and that's understandable for a guy who's learning new terminology, learning new teammates. You've heard him build as a true point guard, right? What's a big responsibility of a point guard? Knowing his teammates' tendencies. He doesn't know these teammates' tendencies yet, so I expect Tre Jones' role and success to grow as we move through the rest of the season, and I know he's going to get quite a bit of opportunity, even though the Bulls have a ton of guards on this roster. As for Kevin Huerter, there's no other way to describe his debut other than to say it was a little bit rough. 1 for 7 shooting. He got good looks, didn't always knock him down. I didn't have a chance to talk to Kevin after the Golden State game. I did talk to him before the Golden State game. He thinks this offense will help unlock his career 37% three-point percentage. He was shooting 30% for the Kings this season before the trade, obviously well below his career percentage. He said that team played a lot of ISO, ran a lot of the same plays. He was standing off the ball. His playing time dropped as well. He thinks in this offense that prioritizes pace, ball movement, shifting the ball from side to side, he's going to get a lot more looks. And look, Kevin Huerter, as I mentioned, is a career 37% three-point shooter. If you continue to give him open looks, you have to believe he's going to start knocking them down and get above that 30%. He had a rough debut. I expect Kevin Huerter to bounce back from that in these last 2 games before the All-Star break. As for Zach Collins, he was the odd man out, did not play against the Golden State Warriors. Billy Donovan has been very open and transparent about this situation. There's multiple reasons why he has yet to play, and we'll see what happens in the Pistons games. They have not practiced with the double big lineup. It's a lineup that Billy Donovan didn't even really love to use last season when he had a really potent possibility there in Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond. When Billy Donovan finally leaned into that double big look, it actually succeeded, but that was with Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond. I do think at some point, once they get more practice time, probably coming out of the All-Star break, you will see Billy Donovan try to practice with Nikola Vucevic paired with Zach Collins and or Jalen Smith and Zach Collins. But there's a caveat to that. We've all seen the way the Bulls like to play this season, right? They want to play faster. They want to get up more three-point shots. They want to play with a lot of pace. What accomplishes that? Guards. Billy Donovan's got a lot of guards at his disposal, a lot of guards that he can use out there in that style, and that's kind of what he's been more comfortable doing. So I think you'll see a little bit of the double big lineup, and then just how much Billy Donovan uses that lineup will determine how much of that lineup we see down the stretch. But Zach Collins is an extremely physical big man. He's a legit 6'11". I'm 6'4". I feel like I look a lot of players at least kind of in the eye. This dude towers over me, and he's a big dude. And Billy Donovan has said, like, if you do get in there, we want you using your physicality to impact the game. As we all know, the Bulls have struggled with some second chance points, difficulties, rebounding, etc. Zach Collins gives them, if he gets some playing time, an opportunity to change that. All right, storyline number 3. Coby White's quietly been on kind of a heater here, and I've got the stats to prove it. He's had 5 straight 20-point games entering Tuesday night's home game against the Detroit Pistons. That has featured 55% three-point shooting by Coby White in that stretch. Now look, Coby's had kind of a goofy year or different year because he's been kind of streaky, but you know what's crazy? You go down and look at his stats. He's shooting 38.2% from three-point range. That's just below his career high. However, he is taking a career high 8.2 three-point attempts per game. So Coby is leaning into this offensive style. He's embracing it. He's obviously an elite catch-and-shoot player, and you're seeing that kind of take hold this season. So I always say the thing about Coby White is, like, you count him out or say, oh, he's going to move off the ball or maybe not have as big of a role. He always finds a way to impact the game. And along those lines, there was a lot of talk about Coby White drawing interest near the trade deadline, right? I've actually heard subsequently, I've heard that downplayed a little bit internally, so I actually do not fully know how much interest he did draw. I mean, look, any team that knew the Bulls guard situation, his contract situation, probably should at least made a call to inquire about his availability. What I do know is this: he is extremely valued internally. In fact, I was told that 𝗗cie𝗰𝗶𝗹 made sure, at least kind of his camp, that it would take like a monumental offer for them to move him. So even though Coby White is up for an extension after next year, and that contract extension could get a little tricky, right now he is in the Bulls' future plans. And look, a lot of this credit goes to Coby White, because every season it seems like his role is changing, right? I mean, last year he finally embraced that pure point guard role, and I thought did a really, really good job in that role. But this year you acquired Josh Giddey, so what does Coby White do? He has to move more off the ball and is not having the ball in his hands in pick and roll situations as much, but he is in more of those catch and shoot situations. And the guy's just a basketball player because he adapts to whatever role the Bulls give him. So again, a little bit of a streaky year for Coby White, but his stats are his stats at the end of the day, and he's still impacting the game, and he's currently on one of those heaters, which is why I'm going to be checking him out closely against these Pistons in those back-to-back games. All right, I mentioned there's one storyline I will not be following this week, and that is the Sunday NBA All-Star Game. Yes, I will not be watching again. And get ready for my rare, epic, old man get off my lawn rant. I'm not a big ranter, but I don't even know what the format is this year. How bad is that? I cover the NBA. It's just like, I can't keep up with all these changes. I know there's a new format this year. I know I should know what the new format is. I refuse to learn it as of now. I'll probably check in before Sunday, but it's just like, if you need to keep gimmicking up this game to make it competitive, that tells you all you need to know about the state of this game. And it's really, to me, unfortunate. I'm old enough to remember as recently as 2012, Orlando, Florida. Tom Thibodeau, the Bulls coach, and his staff are the head coaching staff for the Eastern Conference. Derrick Rose is an all-star. Luol Deng is an all-star. That's the all-star game where Derrick refused to dance in player intros. That was fun. And look, Dwayne Wade broke Kobe Bryant's nose in the third quarter. They saw blood. That's how competitive that game was as recently as 2012. Let's even go back closer. 4 years ago in this very building, the United Center, they came up with, a gimmick, I admit, but it was that Elam ending, and for the first year, it worked. I was there for the stretch of that game. It was competitive. Players were playing hard. They were caring. Why can't this be the state every year? I don't get it. This league loves to showcase itself. It is a wonderful weekend. The whole weekend is fantastic. I've covered multiple All-Star games. As I mentioned before, All-Star Saturday night is fantastic. The three-point shootout every year is great. The dunk contest can be hit or miss, but I think this year with Matas Buzelis and some other young talent and Mac McClung, it's going to be really interesting. All-Star Sunday, I just don't understand why these players can't play harder. They play harder in off-season workouts, these great runs you hear at Pauley Pavilion at UCLA or out in the Boston Celtics practice facility. These off-season summer runs are legendary, right? Why can't they bring that intensity to the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday? I do not get it. I will not be watching. Sorry in advance, and maybe they'll get it right next year. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the Fast Break. We really appreciate you checking it out. We're going to continue this rolling the rest of the season, and we'll catch you next time.